Okay, lots to do in this lesson. This is the last lesson of the week 5 I believe. So let's dive straight in. Let's bring in a UV sphere. We're not going to go in edit mode, we want to keep it as the origin point in the center of the foot. So we want to keep it in the center when moving it in object mode. And then when we've scaled it up to be as big as the foot, we're then going to go straight into sculpt mode and use the grab brush. So we're using the grab brush to smooth it down, pull it in, pull it out, just to take form of the foot. I totally forgot to do, I've just realised what I've forgotten to do at the end of this lesson is go over the actual foot and make it a little smaller, but that's okay. We will resize and do this in a later video because we will have to resize and do some multi modifications to certain pieces of the armor, but that's okay. That's just personal preference as well, which I'll probably just do a speed up video for doing that. But anyway, with the foot, I also rotated it a little bit just to line up a little bit. If your foot is completely out of place and you are using mirror as I am on the x-axis, don't be afraid to select the foot, use the grab brush and try and line it up just so it's in there. So it helps you with the mirroring of the armor. Okay, it's not a big problem. I've seen so many avatars and so many artists that do this. It's not a problem at all. If you think the shoe is in the way, again, you can always push it inside the armoured boot that we are creating now. It's some sort of an armoured boot or armoured shoe we're doing. Haven't quite decided what it is exactly. It's just a fancy piece of armour that I've thought of and designing in my head. So, with very low topology, as you can see, I'm just pushing it in and out and getting the shape I want before I remesh this. Now, when I remesh this, I'm going to go straight to 0.15, sorry, as this is in a pretty good position and ready to be drawn on. And after I've drawn on it, I will more than likely later on remesh it to 0.01. I wouldn't go anywhere. I wouldn't go past 0.01 unless you have a very good graphics or your CPU, because you could end up crashing Blender. I've tried this and I wouldn't recommend it. So when we've remeshed it, we'll just smooth everything over, hold shift with the grab or the draw brush and just hold shift and smooth it down. And then we're just going to try and place it, put it in place. And whilst it's nice and big and beefy, don't worry about the size too much. We can always scale it down and change the size later on. As you'll notice when you smooth things down and using the draw brush to push things into, to make the edges a bit more creased and a bit more sharp, you'll see bits of the foot. But that's not to worry because we do have to go over it later on. So here I've used the project line brush and I've just drawn underneath it. I'll probably do this later on after I have remeshed and modeled it. So, but I thought I'll just do it now to give myself a bit more of perspective on what the shoe would look like. It's not a problem. Maybe it's not exactly time. It's not too bad and time consuming, but that's okay. So with a draw brush, we're just going to go over the top bit of the boot and the underneath, and then we're going to draw where the heel would be roughly. I thought I'd decide, because this is a different type of armoured boot I'm going for, I would normally put a bit of a diagonal slant where the heel would be, but in this case I thought I'd just do something a little bit different, and then just, I don't know why I'm spending too much time on the heel there. Yeah. Should have probably just cut that bit out. But, okay. We all make mistakes. No one's perfect, right? So, and I don't know what I was doing here, just drawing some sort of an arc. I was just experimenting, just seeing what it would look like. Decided I didn't quite like that, so I will change that later on. And now the toes, just the front bit of the boot. I just wanted to make it a little bit more pointy. And as you can see, sometimes when you pushed in the geometry, you will see the foot behind. So, as we're speeding through it, nice and fast, it can be pretty boring sometimes just watching me sculpt things over and over and over again. I mean, Can be very repetitive sometimes, but the reward is amazing. So here we are. We're just pointing down, pushing in the boot, and yeah, I quite like the way that it's sitting. And now I'll draw some sort of a pattern on the front. As you can see, I'm just trying to find the best pattern. I'm going to stick with like a spiky, pointy kind of boot. So as you can see, using the draw sharp, just pushing in, pulling out and drawing over the top, we'll just create that nice 3D mark. Now I did some sort of a strange upside down love heart here, which I thought was, I didn't think it would look as bad when I after I'd done it, and I thought, okay, I think I might have to change that. It's the same with this side bit here. After I filled it in, I looked at it, I was like, yeah, it's completely out of, like 3 random shapes on the shoe just did not look right at all. And I thought, I'll tell you what, I'll just turn this into a another spike on the side of the shoe, which I end up doing in the end anyway. So after smoothing it down, just basically smoothing it down just to erase what was there, and then I just redrew on a bit more, a better stylized pattern, like so. And then I just erased the upside down heart, and then thought, I know what I'll do. I will make some sort of a triangle going over the shoe, because then we can create that into some sort of nice little pattern later on. So just using draw sharp, just drawing on the lines, pushing in, holding control, and then drawing out. Looks like I'm just colouring in, but yeah. Once we've raised it out and we pushed it in, if you push it in and you keep on seeing the foot, don't worry, just use the grab brush and then just pull it out. So we want to make it a little bit more spiky at the top, but we'll come to that in a second. But we want to make a spike at the back of the heel of the foot. I want to bring that up a little bit because it looked like it is down too much. It looked like the heel was showing. I don't really want a heel there as it's a boot, so drawing some kind of a spike here. Not too big, just something a bit different, like a spike at the back of the shoe. And I'll probably end up putting one at the back. So I used the inflate brush here just to give it some more depth, to play around with the geometry, and then press Ctrl R to remesh it. You may notice there's a lot of times in this video that when I get to a certain point I just press Ctrl R and I just keep doing that over and over and over again. When doing spikes, I've noticed when you're losing the geometry and the geometry keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and you're like, oh no, now I can't sculpt, just hit Ctrl R, and then finalize it over nearer to the end on for your final sort of look. I'll probably go over this again in a 0.01 remesh setting, so it's much smoother, sharper, and better looking as well. So here on these sort of spikes, they were pointing up, but using the grab brush, zooming in, making sure your radius. When you're zoomed out, try and make sure your grab brush isn't too big. If you're zoomed out and you're trying to move it, there's so much moving and navigation around the model. Using the radius on your brush, zoom in, zoom out, brush big, small, all sorts. Try and get comfortable on what you find that's better for you. Do you prefer a small brush, therefore zoom in to zoom out, or do you prefer having a certain distance away from your model and just increasing the brush size and decreasing it? Anyway, so what I'm doing here is, as I have sculpted out these little wings on the side, I will pull these out like so with the grab brush, zoom in and then just pull out with the nice big brush. Not too big though, but yes. And then just go around the sides and just make it look as nice, and just make sure it's nice and straight pretty much. With the mirror on. Don't forget, if you haven't got the mirror on or you've forgotten about the mirror, that's not to worry. As long as your origin point hasn't been moved, you can just click the drop down arrow where your mirror is and then just hit symmetrize, which I'll probably end up doing as well, because sometimes for some reason I've noticed it comes out of being symmetrical. That might be just because of the odd geometry pull, or when you've remeshed it or something, or the topology is not quite sitting, or something like that. I can't remember exactly why it does that, but yeah. So now I'm actually using the clay strips brush, which I'm just adding in the geometry because I wanted to make sure, I wanted to bring that down, just giving it some like nice sort of detail, so that spike's not just a random spike on the back of the heel sort of thing. So it has some sort of depth to it. And then just going over, using the grab brush, pulling it in and out as you do, and just looking over it. It looks nearly done, but I want to add something to the front of the boot. I was thinking of maybe some sort of a spike. I don't want it to point outwards, so I might point it to like curl it to point outwards sort of thing. I wasn't sure exactly what to do there, but yeah, I just selected the lower part of the leg plate arm I made previously in the last lesson and just hit it, and then just stretching this middle piece here and making that more pointy. So just using the grab brush and putting it in, pushing it in, smoothing it over. Probably go over one last time with a scrape tool. We'll more than likely remesh this at the end and just make it even lower topology, so it's easier to scrape. So I did this and I thought, no, it's not gonna, looks more like a jester's clown shoe or something. So so I thought I'll tell you what, I'll do some sort of like a weird looking spike thing here, and it's just press Control R to remesh, and then I added some geometry to it, just trying to make it a little bit thick but not too thick, but like sharp. But then again, it was getting a bit too big and thick, so just needed to push it up, smooth it down, and then voila. And there we have it. I'm just going to pull up the top bit of the shoe here, just so we've got more geometry to play with later on in case we need it. So just going to leave it for there. And I think that's everything for this lesson. A little bit longer than normal, but we're going to dive in and go straight into the next lesson. Thanks for watching, and if you have any questions, feel free to drop me and find me on Discord. Till the next lesson.